So, welcome. This morning I begin with a Dharma poem. That is, some lines of a Dharma poem. It's a very, very important one. And scholars in Buddhism hold that it has been directly from the Buddha and from the very, very early days, because it was passed on and recited even before the sutras were known. And a poem has its advantage, you easily remember. It's just some lines, and you know at that times you had to remember. And it's an instruction. And it is an insight. I only read half of the poem, and many of you know it. But still, listen. That's what the beginning of this addressing the monks is. Listen and pay close attention. And those who had been with him said, yes, we do. And the Blessed One said, you shouldn't chase after the past or place expectations on the future. What is past is left behind. The future is as yet unreached. Whatever quality is present, you clearly see right there. Not taken in or unshaken. That's how you develop the heart. And with that expression, to develop the heart means to finally establish nirvana, the heart, why you are practicing or what you are practicing for. This has been translated in different flavors and words, and it sounds always a little bit, you should not. And you have heard me yesterday, I do not think it's a good approach to obey. Someone says to you, whoever that is, God or the Buddha, you should. And I'm very happy that Thai has translated a little bit different. A little bit more soft. Do not pursue the past. It's something between you should not and an invitation. Something like, just don't. Simple. Do not lose yourself in the future. The past no longer is, the future has not yet come. Looking deeply at life as it is. In the very here and now, you hear Thai. Huh? The practitioner dwells in stability and freedom. So these last words are so, so important, because we all yearn for this stability, this being on a ground you can rely. You're stable. There is no taken in, that is, you're influenced. And the proper Zen expression would say, above all, don't bubble. That don't kind of start, well, it could be this one, it could be that one. No. You have a firm ground to stay. And we all like to have that, and we yearn for that. And I've made you aware as good as I could. With that mind we have, with that human mind, with all its survival fear, there is no stability. You know what I'm talking about. It says this way, and it says that way. The religion says this one, and another religion says this one. The politician says this one, and the other one is opposite. And this one says, this is mine, and the other starts raising the weapon and said, no, it's mine. This human mind now, which we have now, is a mess, is a chaos. It's just uncertainty, and it cannot be more uncertain. But it's not life that is uncertain. That's by itself is uncertain. But the main problem is our different diverging attitudes and visions, and but I do see, and the other sense, but I do see, that is what creates dukkha. Life you can take, as it says here, as it is. That's not dukkha. Dukkha is created by this and that, and not knowing, and against, and wanting to have, and so on and so on. That creates confusion, discussions. And all these wars and fears and crimes and wanting, that's because we have that specific mind. It's based, and that is what I made us aware, it's based on the biological mind. We begin as biological systems. But at a certain point in the development of life, and here the development of the mental properties and the mental abilities, there was a huge transformation. It was almost a quantum leap. Nothing before had shown it would happen. At least we can trace it back. We cannot say, well, some animals before us do have that in some way. None of them have that. At a certain point, and the point is a development of some 100,000 years, something developed in our mind, a kind of consciousness. Before, and all animals still have that, it was cognition. I made you aware that the paramecium can. No. It can cognize, but it does not have a consciousness. Consciousness means you can step back. You can have a distance. There is something, but you don't necessarily, out of a drive born into yourself, react. Consciousness creates a gap. The gap between an impulse and a reaction. An animal cannot have that gap because it does not have the mental power not to react. And I told you and made you aware without kind of thinking bad of you, most of us are just like that. When you observe yourself in your daily life, there's an impulse and you react. And very often we catch ourselves afterwards and say, how could I do that? And you might even say, well, I don't know. Because that is deep into your structure. The structure of this huge mental construct where everything is kind of poured in. The beliefs, the rules and regulations, and so on and so on. And out of that, most of us react. So it's a huge progress if we could, even once in a while, not immediately react. We could stay. And that is the main first training. Body, speech, and mind are united. There are no thought of right and wrong. And they dwell in perfect mindfulness, in stillness. And I really, from all my heart, I advise you to learn by heart these lines I've mentioned. And every day you sit down, and even if it's just in front of the bed because you're too tired, you recite the evening chant to make sure you have understood something else needs to happen. It is a long, long way and a long training not to be only caught in that. It doesn't happen because you have a wish. Oh, it would be wonderful if. It needs training. And it needs the training to be able to step back, have that experience of that gap. That's the first thing. That is why it is hold that the Buddha already in his early days reminded his disciple, don't cling to the past, don't go into the future. That is a conditioned mind. That's what we do. Whatever has transmitted to us is the past. We live only in the past. It's almost unheard of and extremely rare that we stay in the present. If we would stay in the present, we would not react. So what the Buddha said, warned, he did not have that terms, conditioned mind and all these kind of things. 2,500 years, he just said, don't go in what has transmitted to you. This thought and this belief and that belief and so on and so on. Don't go to that. And be very careful to bring your mind into hopes and ideas and whatever. Don't do that. Step back and stay, as Thai then would say, in the here and the now. And I made you aware, it's not the here and the now, it's a mind of being present. The here and now is not a place and a time. Now I am in the Intersein-Zentrum, and now I know what it means to be in the here and the now. No, I didn't say that. And Thai is not saying that. He is a proper disciple of Buddha. I make you aware of that. That's why he said, if we are able to step back, getting out of the conditioned mind, out of all these proliferations which has added over the 1,000 and 100,000 of years, then we touch something different, our true nature. And I call it different from different tradition, Rigpa, choiceless awareness. And that moment you are out of the comparing, of the judging. This is better, and this is worse. This is the truth. No, someone says this is the truth. So I do make you aware. We have do all, even small steps to get out of that mind. If you catch yourself having that kind of a mind, and that is a traditional saying, step back from that. That's not a good one. Be very aware how you feed your mind. With this news and that TV and that film and that book, you are feeding the mind. And you're not taking care of the mind. So the first step, which is true for everybody, single one, and for the whole humanity as such, take care. Be aware how you think, how you bear, how you create suffering by that kind of a mind, and how you create harmony with that kind of a mind. And you can check that. You might like to read again the Kalama Sutra, the first teaching of the Buddha, where he said, if you have that kind of a mind, how is the result? And that, oh, sir, trouble, dukkha. That's what we perceive. That is how we think and how we behave. And he just offered them a different mind of understanding, of not greed, not hatred, and so on and so on. And he said, if you have that kind of a mental construct, how about that? Oh, sir, it would be wonderful. And then he would kind of simply say, okay, then think that way. Basta. Done. If you know what to do, you do. And in the last days I have us made aware it's very difficult. It's so ingrained. We are so pushed to do that. this mind, this way to think, these kind of ideas and differences and all that things definitely create dukkha. That is a cause for dukkha. That is not only what the Buddha said. It's not only what the Kalamasi said. You can observe that today. When you look around and see the news and whatsoever, the main experience is dukkha. And so we are here as human beings to do whatever we can to reduce dukkha. Is it so? It would not anyone would have the idea not to do that. But it's only that, reducing dukkha. You don't change the mind by that. Nobody ever said, if you start reducing dukkha, one day it's gone. Yes, people believe that. And they misunderstand or know. I don't know what they do. When Thai places so much emphasis on reducing dukkha, because he himself had lived in times of deep dukkha, and he is moved by these dukkha, and we are all moved by dukkha, and we all have the kind of the task or we need to do to reduce dukkha. And nobody ever would say, I have said you should not reduce dukkha. And I definitely cannot say that Thai has said by reducing dukkha one day you don't have dukkha anymore. It's not true. So, but here, to reduce dukkha is looking for the cause of it. To reduce dukkha in the world as such is action, doing something, getting out, going to the roads, and so on and so on. Do all these measures, and it's definitely what you need to do. But it does not change the mind. So it does not change the cause. Someone wrote to me that I'm contradictory to the teachings of Thai. And I honestly say no. Thai has very clear, close, and faithful to the Buddha. And he never ever said you can end suffering by reducing it. Whatever I teach you, it's not my teaching, it's just kind of repeating something, says the end of dukkha is a quite different story altogether. It's a quantum leap in our mind. We get out of that mental construct we have created over the 100,000 of years and act on that. And it's somehow we can't help. We even want to do it differently, but it's kind of so deep-rooted in us. And if you observe yourself, you would find yourself in that trap. And I ask you, slowly, as good as you can, reduce things you do which create dukkha in your family, in your mind. That's why I yesterday used the word lifestyle. It makes a difference whether you live this way or you live that way. I don't mind, it's your business. But you can have the experience, when I do this, I have that mind. You see, when you, with all your joy, see in the late evening a horror video on your beloved channel, you're feeding your mind. It's not just seeing that, you're feeding your mind, and people don't believe that. There are sayings that when young people, when children do see these things, it doesn't do with them. And it's not true. And it's proven. The criminal acts of young people are raised. The other day it was known that the 11-year one killed the 10-year one. Does he do that because he has a happy mind? I can tell you that his family is quite supporting to his acts. So please, watch yourself, observe yourself. And that is the first practice plus that. You don't even come into a mind which does not have conditioning. It very clearly says here, you clearly see what's happening. There is a kind of just simply seeing without judging. It's a kind of before wisdom. And I will go through that now. Another translation is, but that which is present, he discerns. And discerns is understanding, has observed that, had proved that, and finally says, yes, it's that way. With insight as and when it comes. It's a specific next mental process. And I'm very often pointing to that. And it's in the old text clearly said. It's not only that you're out of conditioning and you're still and and you're all of a sudden in your true nature or Rigpa and I don't know what. You are asked that this one is a state of knowing, but it's a different state of knowing. It's a kind of, the other day I said, it's bare attention. You are attentive and you see what you do creates discordant. You can see. There's not a bigger thing, That's what the Buddha did with the Kalamas. He said, when you do this, do you see what's happening in it is? So even a fool, even someone who is not sensible knows that is a result of my mind, that of this mind creates that actions, and that actions create that result. But obviously most of us are helpless. We go on doing these things, knowing it's going to be the end of the universe. We all know we shouldn't do that. The politicians do know it's no good. and to go on doing it. And we all follow that, and we know what I'm saying is no good. So there needs something more. When we practice that bare awareness, that bare attention, we touch, so to say, the ground of that mind, which is another mind. The ground of that which then begins to manifest. And this ground down there is wisdom. It is knowing. And it is empathy and compassion. And that is proven by all those who meditate for a long time. And I must honestly say, basically, these are our Buddhist, or our Tibetan Buddhist people, who really look into that for years and years and years, and they all can prove when I'm in that state of mind called Rigpa or whatsoever, there is no negative thought, there is no judgment, there is nothing against anything, there is only the open, clear mind and the wide heart. And I assure you that even if you don't sit in deep meditation for 10,000 hours or how many years, you very often would touch that. And the training is very simple. You have heard the first step of training is to bring your mind to an object that is gathering all these different ideas and these confusions and this and that. You just bring it together into oneness. And it doesn't say that all this is gone then. It's only at that point kind of lined into a clear mind. Don't ever think when you've done that for 10 minutes and you go out, it stays like that. But don't miss the training. Whenever you can, and if it's walking, eating, and I don't know what, you bring body and mind into that oneness. And in that oneness, there is clear mindfulness and stillness. It might now be a little bit far-fetched for the experience of most of you. Give it a try. Otherwise, I don't know why you're here. I can tell you I'm doing that. So there is an experience of a mental state. You don't call it a mind anymore because it doesn't have content. In the Zen tradition it says no mind. Now that's a bit confusion for us. So that kind of a stability we are all looking for, that is stable, clear. I'm not moved in and not moved out, I am now. That is how this poem says, now I am here. you might practice that with watching the breath. But please, don't ever think it has something to do with the breath. If that is something you kind of look for in your conditioned mind, you have an object which gives you something of happiness and joy, or I don't know what. The whole practice is to stabilize the knowing, the stability of a mind which does not have content. And that is, we call knowing. So when you have brought your mind into that kind of a stability, please switch into the next step, the experience I know. And that is what the Buddha said. He sits down and he knows he's breathing in. And he knows he's breathing out. And we misperceive that he knows about the object. No. Because of that, we don't switch the level. We stay in having an object and kind of judging that. It's very difficult, is it so? We are so used as survival mode beings to look out and see what does it with us. That's not the breath. Don't perceive that. It's the knowing of an object. It's not the object. It's difficult to understand, is it so? If you don't have that experience, you say, yeah, I know, it's now in-breath. No. The Buddha didn't say that. He talked about the knowing. You see, when I sit there and a thought comes up, I simply know a thought comes up. I don't do anything, but I still know. And bring the mind back to the object. That is the first training. So when you sit in what you call meditation, and you have the meditation object breath, it's only one of many. Traditionally there are 40. So we just choose for, I don't know what reason, the breath, which is almost many times even not a good one, especially when you have asthma. And you people do not perceive that it's not the object, it's the knowing. So in many traditions, especially in the Tibetan tradition, you have, I don't know what, kind of an object, even a stick. In Zen, you have a white wall. That's why we do have these kind of things. You don't look out and see what the head is doing and the deer. You have a white wall. Nothing to look at. That's why we have that. As a protection of the mind. And then, however you practice with all your tension and you get headache, a thought comes in. So, the first training is to sit, have an object, bring that experience into the knowing any object, the knowing quality of the mind, and then it needs to be stabilized. That's the old teachings. It needs to be stabilized. And it's very easy. Especially within the Theravada tradition, they have that. You move away, a thought comes up, something. And you hear people saying, oh, well, and I said, and this came up, This kind of an emotion came up, or that thought, or that idea. And now my meditation moved in some totally different. Yes, you missed the training. Something comes up and you bring yourself back. You have here from us a series of guided meditation to protect and to foster this process. I would like that you have them at home and do it. So you move away. Okay, so you move away. Some thought comes in, and you bring yourself, and you hear the words nicely and friendly back. That's the main practice of stabilizing the mind. That is stabilizing to stay with a certain stable mind. Okay? So please do that for the next 20 years. Now you have at least some years just to get the experience. I know. Whatever it is, you know. Someone who is not a Buddhist, but a neuroscientist of very well known, Maturana. You might have heard about him now. He said, the point is the knowing of the knowing. He even steps even further back, and he has practiced that way. So it's good enough if you say, and that's a Theravada tradition, I go out. And the Theravada then session that says, thinking, thinking, thinking. That to make it clear for the mind, that's it. That's happening now. That's why you repeat that 3 times. Thinking, 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 and you bring yourself back. That clarity of mind needs to be practiced again. Okay, you do that. All that is called undiscriminating awareness. Choiceless awareness. You stabilize your awareness so that you're not moved out. Okay? Now, yesterday said, what, and then? Now you sit there, happy in the third abode of any Buddhist heaven. In the Christian heaven, you get a cloud and a harp and sing the songs. Now you sit here and don't think at all. Okay? Now the first practice is stabilizing. But this stabilizing is not to squeeze out anything which is on the front. You just take all chances, it's there, you should not be there, and push yourself back. It's just the first step to stabilize that. And now you are stable enough for the next step. And that is now the solution. I said to you, that kind of a mind which does not have any contact, the pure awareness, the Rigpa, and so on, it has a kind of wisdom. It has this kind of not anything of negative thought or whatsoever. It's not an experience, but it's a kind of knowing. Now, if a thought comes in, a feeling comes in, something which is coming out of your deep, deep mental construct, it's get reflected to that. Can you imagine? And that is now called, and then the next and final step, and the next we do in 2 years, it's called discriminating wisdom. People are getting confused. The first undiscriminating wisdom is a certain step. You stabilize it, the mind. The discriminating wisdom is on that point saying, that is different from this one, as it should be. If you are there, and you even might be there in your daily life, somehow you would say, no. You sit there, and a feeling of anger or something comes up. And now you turn to that, and you're aware of that anger. And you're totally aware how that feels, that anger. Because you're stable, not being taken in. That's important. You need to be so stable that you can hold the anger. Some of you have read books by Pema Children. She's on that. It needs a long training. Don't read only the books. That's dangerous. You do think you can do things. No, you can't. You don't have the stability. You are still taken in. The anger overwhelms you. No. You stay with it. You feel that. If you experience that in the context of that. And it's only then, because the discriminating wisdom, the discriminating awareness, gives you a clear insight. This is no good. Don't ever have your 5 and this one and contemplations and 10 commandments and I don't know what, and you shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that. This is a normal, usual mind. We only transform our mind in itself, not because someone from the outside says. And this is very easy. And once you start being sensitive to that, you start seeing this is an emotion, an feeling which creates suffering. You can't say. You don't now look into that, what it does, like the Buddha addressed that to the Kalamas. You deeply feel this kind of wrong vibrations. Have you had that? Easy. You feel. We often say little children who don't have that kind of a condition, they feel when they lie. And they are ashamed. And people should not know. But then they are trained in the family, it's normal. Everybody lies. So they say, okay, then it's a get of a survival mode in the family. But deep down, in the beginning, before anything has covered and distorted, they know. And it's called, they are unschuldig. Innocent. So this part of meditation is having us back into the innocence. And it is heard by many, especially Zen teachers. They become like children. They hop around and laugh and don't take anything serious. That's not the point. They have become innocent again, if they're good practitioners. We can become that. And whenever you got that kind of an experience, then you are at home. And then you are stable. That's the only stability we have, the experience, the wisdom, the ability not to do this, but come back to do that. Then you're out of whatever has been told to you by politicians, by religious people, and I don't know who. You know. But you don't know in the sense of social. For that you need something different. Don't do this and don't do that and I don't know what. But please, you get stuck. You are stuck. And a psychoanalyst, I think it was Karen Horney, he used this term, the tyranny of the shoulds. Religion is mostly the tyranny of the shoulds. 10 commandments, 5 commandments, 35, and I don't know what, 300 something. You should not. It's just to reduce that. Clear? It's only to reduce, but it's not the path to freedom. It's not, it's changing something, but it's not a transformation. You can change a lot of things. Not read these newspapers and don't have that friends and I don't know what. That's good enough. A transformation is this path. The Buddha has transformed his whole being. If you read what nirvana means, it's a transformation of the whole being, but it's not actually that you are now transformed. You are on a different plane of mental formation. So please hold these different planes apart. And when Thai is having experienced really deep suffering, puts all his heart into reducing that, that is definitely what he should do, what you could do and what you should do when you're out there. And it's actually the second of the dhanas, of the gifts. Dana is a gift and giving. The first paramita and the second of that is reducing the suffering. The first is giving help, Red Cross, something like that. It's a kind of reducing suffering on a material plate. The second one is kind of a social thing. You help people to live in different areas and so on and so on. What we are doing here is a third, sharing the Dharma, sharing the insight, sharing the practice, and understanding, helping people to understand how they create dukkha. The other one I mentioned that from Bhagavan saying, it's not a bleeding heart compassion. It is as to do everything you can find to make the people aware and insightful how to create that. We create suffering. It's not there. So we can do everything not to create that. But we are around with, I saw, how many people? 8 million, 9 million, or millions, or what? They're all in that other mind. And don't ever think they will end suffering by that. And the Buddha didn't say that. The Buddha was very clear. The ending of suffering is I would say, a quantum leap in your mental approach. It's a quite different mind. So please, do whatever you can to practice that. Whenever you can, and that's the main approach of Thai, bring your mind out of the conditioning. When I walk, I walk. When I eat, I eat. You bring yourself out of the judgments and the likes and the dislikes. And you will find how difficult it is. Before you finally eat, you had a lot of dislikes and likes, until you finally said, and now, when I eat, I eat. Yes, because it's now the way you want it. Just be honest with yourself. I'm not asking you. You can do whatever you want, but please be aware of the mind you have. Take care of the mind, and you can. The practice is so deep and lovely and wonderful, and so easy. Give yourself a chance to bring the mind into that undistracted awareness. Feel that stableness and this openness of a mind which is not condensed and confined into all these thoughts and ideas and emotions. You just sit there and stabilize that. You easily fall out. Stabilize that. And then I offer to you the next step. With your sensitivity, you have the discrimination. Anger feels as anger. Only when you are in that mind. The old saying, I'm referring to that, though I didn't meet the master, Chinol, the founder of the Korean Zen. 14, whatsoever. He said, sudden enlightenment, gradual cultivation. That's what I'm saying. We are not practicing sudden enlightenment. That is a different thing. But we cultivate a certain, we stabilize a certain mind. In contrasting to that, there is a gradual changing. You don't do that anymore. You don't do that anymore. You don't do that anymore. It just feels weird. It feels wrong, and so on and so on. Nobody tells you. So that is why so often people ask, how you do that? What's your method? And I'm saying, I don't know. It just happens. It's just a process of growing. And one day you don't do that anymore. And nobody has told you. You even haven't read the book. A Western normally reads a book. No, you don't do. You're getting sensitive, you practice, and you don't do it anymore. Okay? That's all. Not difficult. The only thing I like to add at the end is, you need to have a very unwavering intention. It's not done just a kind of a hobby. And it's not done as a job. It's done because from the depth of your whole being, you yearn for that. Okay? Thank you for listening.